Hi, I haven't done this in a while, and since my last episode, it's been quite some time, and I feel kind of guilty about it, but if I'm also gonna be very honest, I'm glad I didn't upload anything because I just genuinely didn't feel like it. And I want to keep that intention with this podcast that I don't want to just upload for the sake of uploading or just because I feel like I have something to say. It's more of sometimes when I upload these, I feel like I know what I'm talking about. And if I feel like I'm doing it just because I have to, I feel like I don't know what I'm talking about, even if it's objectively true. And that's usually the instinct that I follow. If I genuinely feel like I'm saying the truth, then sure, I'll upload it. And if not, I just won't. I'll just do nothing. And for a minute there, I thought I might not do another episode, but here we are again, and I feel like talking. I've been thinking about taking the next step and how painful it is. And when I say the next step, I mean it in any instance in your life, in some sort of actual physical manifestation of the next step, or if it's just a feeling that some chapter in your life is closing and you're moving on to a new thing, or if it's actually just a new action within the day. It doesn't really matter, but there's some pivotal things in our life, some of them, technically most of them, that we haven't ever done before. We follow a certain routine, right? And suddenly something changes that shakes it all up and we move into something new and that we don't get that old life back. And most of the time, I feel that this happens very unconsciously without our awareness, and it happens really quick if we're not mindful of it. And the truth is, before it even happens, the energy becomes shifting because there's the energy of destruction, there's the energy of creation, and the energy of existence. The deeper you start feeling these energies, the more it's obvious to see which type of energy that you're in your life. And more often than not, there's certain things that I notice, and one of the things is when I get stagnant. And I realize, because I'm someone who moves a lot, I like change and I like new things. So when something gets stagnant, that's for me an indicator that something's going to end. And this is my way of my energy saying, have fun with it for as long as you can. Now it's over soon. And more often than not, that is my time to sort of make peace with it and cut off any loose ends and alchemize old things into new. But right now, even collectively, I feel like there is an energy of change and there is coming about an energy of something new. But right before something new comes, it's a very uncomfortable period. So right before something old alchemizes into something new, that energy of destruction comes through. And right before you take the next step, it sometimes can become uncomfortable, which is why it's easy to distract ourselves during that time, and it's easy to not feel it because it's hard to feel it, honestly. I'm going through it right now, and it's actually heavy, even though I'm enjoying it so much, and I'm looking forward to what's coming so much, and I'm spending so much time being grateful for everything that was and the people that have helped me become the person I am and have allowed me space and gentleness and a guidance to become the person that I am. It's still very painful. The truth is, when you're becoming something new, or I'm not talking all the time about something changing physically in your life either, but if you are healing some sort of childhood pattern or some generational trauma or anything really, and you're changing the pattern, it's painful for the nervous system because your nervous system's sole purpose is to be safe. And the only way to be safe and feel safe is to stay in the known and to stay in a familiar pattern. And when that familiar pattern starts shifting and breaking down or becoming something new, or just completely breaking and not being forwarded into a different pattern, that energy needs somewhere to go. It needs an outlet, and that's very painful. And personally, for me, the way I found out is actually just to provide that outlet. So during times of change and during times where I feel this heaviness in me, I actually just go for joy and I just go for play. And I don't try to be serious during those times. And I don't try to create as much as I try to just have fun a bit mindlessly. Actually, I go out with my friends, I have fun, I travel, I take baths, anything really that brings you joy. And this could be anything. You could literally go outside and play, and that energy that can leave your body in those ways, and make room for the new. But there is still, that said, there still is a small period of void, and that void is actually very painful and actually very scary, if I'm being honest, because you don't know what the next step is. And there is always that very real possibility of you not taking that next step, because both of these things are within your control. You can choose not to move on, even though you physically can move on. You can mentally not, or you could do the hard thing and mentally move on. But either way, there is no right or wrong answer, because the universe doesn't necessarily punish you for not moving on or not alchemizing an old pattern into new or destroying a pattern. It just allows you to experience it as long as you want till you're done with it. But the truth of that matter is that pattern is usually painful in itself. It always ends in some sort of death, and it's a painful experience. But till you learn what you need to learn from it, you will stay in it. And when you're ready to take that next step, there's so much that supports you during it, which a lot of things that we might not even really be aware of that support us to take the next step. But it still doesn't stop it from making it very, very scary and very, very painful. And there is, I believe, no real way of not experiencing that pain. Because I think as long as you are in part of existence, and as long as you are part of a human life, you will have to feel pain, and you will have to feel joy, and you will have to feel the spectrum of the emotions. Because wherever your final goal is in life, and if it is peace, peace doesn't necessarily equate to happiness, and peace doesn't necessarily just equate to having no pain. It just means something altogether, and I think it means having both of those things at the same time and having neither at the same time, and just experiencing it. But some advice that I got recently about this topic was that it's important to feel pain. It's important to feel negativity, especially if you're someone who's subjected to a lot of intense situations and intense experiences. That can usually mean that you are equipped to handle it, and your nervous system can be trained to handle it, because it's not something that necessarily comes easily to a lot of people, and it does need to be trained. To be able to hold emotion is something that is learned, and not something that is just naturally able to be done. Not all the time, actually. You know what? I have no idea. Perhaps there are people who are born into this world and they can handle pain in all forms. And I don't mean handle in the terms of you can take pain. That's not what I mean. I mean you can experience it. If you can break down in it and know that that is just a wave, if you can feel how painful it is, and if you can feel that depth in your heart, and if you can feel when it breaks, if you can feel when it falls, and if you can feel when there's a void. And that's never pretty. That never looks pretty. That never feels pretty. And that's very intense. And but I think it's important in order to grow, because then you train your nervous system to feel complex and deep things. And the more you're able to do that, the more you can hold of life. And we spend so much time, and honestly, we're taught in society to not experience life fully, to be tough, to be hard, to ignore when it gets tough. There's obviously techniques to go through, handle pain, which is sometimes when it's at its peak, don't deal with it, let it pass. And then when it slows down, you can reflect. Some people are actually equipped to deal with it when it's hard. But I personally, I'm not. My way of dealing with intense situations is I let the energy pass because I physically can't handle it. And I just let myself rest when it's hard. And then a few days or months or however, or sometimes years later, I go back and I ask myself, why was this so intense for me? But that's just my way of doing it. But my point is, we're taught so much to numb life. And the way that numbing life is done is genuinely by not experiencing it. And the only way that we experience life is through feeling. And feeling is just our receptors, really. Our senses are our receptors, and then feeling is the signal we get of what is happening in life and what is happening in your life specifically, which is why the same situation can invoke different feelings in you and I, which is why we have two different lives. We have the same receptors, but we process it differently, and that processor comes as a feeling, and your feeling is just a signal of what's happening, and that's all it is. It's nothing more or less than that, but there's a way, a route into which you have to understand it. If you see that theoretically and never really understand it on a deep level, then it'll just become theory and not actually something you can apply. So the only way to really do that is to feel it and go through it and experiencing it without words, really, because most of these experiences, they're very hard to convey. And I think art is the only way you can make sense of it. But most of the time, some of us aren't really artists, and we don't know how to, we've never been taught or never taught ourselves how to express that in a creative way. But creativity is actually the only way to feel that fully. So even if you're not a creative person, having a creative pursuit to express your emotions and to have an outlet for your emotions is very important. But even more important is to feel that without labeling it, without turning it into something else, but to experience it at face value, to experience the void without putting words to it and without putting a face to it. A technique that I teach people a lot is to put a label to your emotions, because it helps you understand what your emotion is. But as you do that more and more and more, there's only so many ways you can label anger. There's only so many colors you can put to anger, and there's only so much pictures or feelings or sounds you can put to it. Eventually, there comes a point and there comes a line that you have to cross that you can't put words to it and you can't put a label to it. It just becomes you, and it just becomes what you're experiencing. And it's not something you can explain to someone else. And usually that is a very, very lonely place. And it's painful, and you can try as you might to explain to someone, but they'll never really understand the full scope of it. So there will come a point in your journey of experiencing emotions and feeling emotions that you will have to let everyone go. You will have to keep everyone else at the door and walk in by yourself and feel this feeling. This is not really why I started this episode, but this is where it's at. And I thought I would go in the direction of when life is in some sort of intermediate space, but turns out talking about feelings again. Okay, I'm done. Bye-bye. Love you guys.